You see that, folks? That is the number 20, and that is also the number of victories the New York Mets have through their first 30 games this season, and they are the first team in all of baseball to record, yes, 20 victories to start the 2022 season. How's it going, everybody? Thank you all so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show in here on WardyNYM. In case you're wondering, why did I not start this right after the Mets victory in Game 2, their doubleheader? That's because I was at the doubleheader. I got stuck in a little traffic on my way home. I meant to go live an hour earlier or so, right around 9 p.m. Eastern time, but we're here at 10 p.m. Eastern time. No different than, say, doing post-game shows after, say, a 7 o'clock starter, somewhere around there. But no less, I'm very excited, very pumped up. Going to break down my reactions, what happened live that I saw in person that you guys, of course, watched on TV. I also want to give a massive shout-out to all my moms out there. I hope everyone had a fantastic Mother's Day. And yeah, we're going to get right into it. Like I said, a lot to get into. I'm very excited. So shout out to everyone here in the live stream right now. You know the drill. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on as always. And thank you guys all so much. I saw a lot of people that are being unbelievably patient throughout the live stream today. I had intentions of going live far earlier than what I am doing right now. So for you guys that stuck through it, especially that are here in live, I really do appreciate it. So shout out to every single one of you. But I do want to give a quick shout out before we get rolling here in the post-game show, breaking down both the Mets' victory and their loss today. Trust me when I say we're going to focus mainly on the victory, because that is what matters most, right? Knowing that it was the last game of the doubleheader today and another series victory for the Mets. Their 8th series victory in 9 opportunities, and they have yet to lose a series because, of course, they split that series in the 4-game set recently against the Braves. But I do want to give you a shout out to Eli Hernandez here in the chat. Both Eli and Frank were sitting behind me at the Mets game today, and they actually recognized me. They are followers on the channel. So shout out to you both. Also shout out to Eli as well, to our fellow friend here on the channel, Draftnik Mark. Pardon me, that being Frank. He was actually wearing a Draftnik Mark hoodie. I got to let Mark know if I didn't do it already. So yeah, shout out to you guys. It was great meeting you. And it was a funny coincidence having you guys behind me. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, no less, this game, this overall two-game doubleheader. We have a lot of breakdown, so I'm going to do a quick shout out to all you guys here in the live stream, and then we'll get going on everything that transpired today. And of course, for people on replay, you know the drill as well. I'll be breaking down everything that there is to know about this game, my analysis, being in person for these 2 games today in Philly, and of course breaking down the numbers, and then we'll begin the comments and questions, all that fun stuff after that. And then for people on replay, that's where we will cut things off, probably 20 minutes to half an hour and this, and then we'll be doing an hour live stream like we normally do for our post-game shows. But let's see. I see Joshua, Loretta, and Sandy, great member on the channel. Ralph, Sean, Shraken, great member on the channel. Ocean Girl, John, Michael, Stephen A, great member. Brendan, my man, great member. 20W, indeed, my man. I'd love to see that. Midnight, great member on the channel. James, Optic, Dolores, Midnight, thank you for becoming a new member on the channel. I really do appreciate that. Hype in the chat for Midnight. Thank you so much for joining WardyNYM. I appreciate that. Llama, how's it going? Great member. Magician, Leon, let's see, Jose, Michael, going down the list even further. Arnold, Todd, the Shraken, if I didn't say him already, great member. Thomas, Eddie, all you guys, thank you all so much for being here, and for everybody else just chiming in, thank you so much, too. Like I said, I'll begin your comments and concerns after I break down everything that transpired in these games, because, guys, let's talk about it. The New York Mets did, in fact, win one of the 2 games today. Would have been awesome if they got a doubleheader sweep, but I think us Mets fans are just spoiled. Let's be honest here. We have had 2 doubleheaders entering today's doubleheader, and we swept them both against both the Giants and the, pardon me. No. Yeah, and the Braves. Yes, that's right. We split this series, but we did sweep the doubleheader against them at least. But the Mets today were 1 run shy of getting themselves at least tied in game 1. So game 1, I'm not going to talk about much. I'm going to just let you guys know right now, break it down quickly. Then I really want to break down the bulk of game 2, my reactions to Pete Alonso, Pistol Pete, Big Meat Pete, however you want to call the polar bear, right, with all these fun nicknames, having himself one of his best days at the plate of his entire career today in game 2. But in game 1, Max Scherzer shoved, but Max did not have it. I blame in part this with being 2 days of extra rest that he had, because the past 2 days it's been rained out, so keep that in mind. Max got worked early by the Phillies, though. He gave up a solo bomb to Harper like he did in the previous start against the Phillies 5 days prior or so when the Mets won that series. That was the 10-6 victory to the series finale in Citi Field, the same series that the Mets, of course, had that combined no-hitter. But Harper had a solo bomb to start things off right as I sat down in my seat. So I was like, oh, that's great. And then we got to the 3rd inning, and I believe Bryson Stott had himself an opposite field RBI single, got himself the start today. And then you saw in the 4th, Harper had himself an RBI single. And then in the 6th, the Mets had themselves a McCann RBI grand out. And then a Lindor RBI double that you guys see here in the highlights. That just wasn't enough. And the biggest kryptonite for the Mets today wasn't necessarily Scherzer, because look, Max didn't have his best stuff today, but even with him getting worked, he still put up another solid start, kept the Mets in it, only giving up those 3 earned runs, but again, did give up those 10 hits in 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, which again, I'm not complaining, but the Mets beat themselves in game 1. They had 2 guys on that you saw there in the 7th inning, back-to-back walks to start the inning, and yet they left the runners stranded on second. All the Mets needed was a deep base hit, and they would have tied the game in the 7th. They did not. They left them stranded, and because of that reason, that was the main factor as to why the Mets lost. They just did not have enough offense going in game 1 against these Phillies, and the Phillies took advantage of a Max Scherzer that wasn't completely sharp today. These things will happen, but I really wasn't even mad. I wasn't griping too much. I was just so pumped up about what we would be seeing hopefully in game 2, and that ended up holding true, and that's why I'm excited to get into it, as you guys are too. Michael, yes, Wardy's late again. Yes, Michael, it's not like I just came back from the game or anything, so pardon me for actually attending a game. You know, I think that's actually a pretty funny comment. But let's get into game 2, shall we? Because we had ourselves Chris Bassitt on the bump facing off against a bullpen for the Phillies. Zach Eflin did not get the start today. He's currently out with COVID-related issues. Wishing him the best, that he feels better. It's always unfortunate to see. But the Mets were in a bullpen game for game 2, and they did not hesitate from taking advantage. As we saw with Bassitt on the mound, Bassitt had a phenomenal start, doing what Chris Bassitt has done all year long for the Mets with a 5.2 innings pitch, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts on 101 pitches, the exact same as Scherzer's pitch count, which was kind of bizarre to see. Bassitt, we saw that balk like halfway earlier in the game, and then it was a ridiculous call, it'd be that, but then he struck out the batter. It's end of the inning regardless, like an absolute dog. But let's get into the guys that really stood out today in game 2 for the Mets in this victory. And it starts and ends with, yes, Pistol Pete, Big Meat Pete, Polar Bear Pete Alonso. What did Pete do? He had himself not 1, but 2 absolutely massive bombs to help propel the Mets to victory, 6-1 in their game 2 today. It started with a Pistol Pete home run that you saw in the first inning with a 2-run bomb. Love to see that. That was after there were 2 outs and Francisco Lindor got on with a base hit. And then Pete Alonso just took that baby deep to left field. That the wind was so crazy today. Balls were falling so short on the warning track. The expected batting average I saw in a lot while I was at the game was ridiculous. Alonso should have had a deep center home run in game 1. Fell short, and Odubel Herrera even had to come back from being deep to going back a little bit shallower and diving out for a nice catch. The wind was ridiculous. It was cold there, but everything that was going the left side was easier to pull than, of course, opposite field for Alonso's case. And Alonso pulled these balls because that first bomb gave the Mets an early 2-run lead, which is great to see. And then the second inning, you saw Gene Segura have himself his 100th home run. That was his solo shot. That made it a 1-run ball game. That's the only run that Bassitt ended up giving up tonight, because as we got to the 5th inning, Pete Alonso just continued to score the runs for the Mets. Got himself another multi-run home run to get the Mets up. At that point, they were up 5-1. You love to see that. And then they tacked on another run, insult to injury, there in the 6th inning as J.D. Davis scored on a wild pitch. That made it 6-1 for the Mets in the 7th inning as well. We saw Francisco Lindor did steal a bag. I just did want to mention that because I have that here in Wardy's top 5. He did have a stolen base, the lone stolen base, I believe, for the Mets today. But the Mets, again, you saw a phenomenal performance from Chris Bassitt today. Just under 6 innings, a beautifully pitched ball with that amazing 5 to 6 pitch arsenal that I'll be breaking down shortly for you folks, along with, of course, the bullpen. Chase and Shreve have 1.1 scoreless. Then Drew Smith. Drew Smith has now over 12 scoreless innings so far this season for, yes, the New York Mets. He's not just one of the best relievers for the Mets this season. He's arguably one of the best in baseball. That's how good this man has been pitching. Looking phenomenal. Love Drew Smith. And then you saw Seth Lugo get the save. So the Mets win game 2, 6-1 today. We'll be breaking down. I see a lot of comments about it. I will be addressing soon. I know that there was, I might have missed a donation or so I'll be addressing that in a little bit too. But guys, my biggest takeaway from these games today are the following. This is Wardy's top 5. We'll be going through the laps a little bit further though, so you understand everything that transpired. But I got to go with Pete Alonso. How is Pete not the top star for today's game? I mean, yes, he didn't do anything in game 1, but he made up for it in every way possible and then some in game 2. And not having 1, but 2 home runs, 3 for 8 on the day was Pete Alonso with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. My number 2 star, you could argue that should be Chris Bassitt. I put Lindor there, though, because the Mets didn't have a crazy amount of offense today, and Lindor at least was one of those guys that was able to bring in some runs, as he did just that. His 2 hits came in clutch because they brought in some runs. 2 for 9 on the day with 2 RBIs, one of them being a deep RBI double in game 1 that gave it made the Mets within a run. They just couldn't execute there in the 7th inning with 2 on, no out, which really hurt them. But again, thankfully, they bounced back in game 2. But I had the 2 RBIs, the run scored, the double, and the stolen base. Chris Bassett is my number 3 star because I thought Bassett was just phenomenal. I mean, if Bassett could have won 7, that would have been great, but he was already 101 pitches in, so he couldn't even finish the 6, which I understood completely. Smart move by Buck, but Bassett just looked like prime Bassett, baby. He has been shoving. He has had one bad start this year, and that was against the San Francisco Giants, where he gave up 5 earned runs. Other than that, Bassett has been nothing short of absolute money. You love to see that. Brandon Nimmo, my number 4 star today out of Wardy's top 5. He was 3 for 7. Nimmo was an on-base machine. I mean, look, I was sitting Phillies side, section 15, 10 rows from the field, and there was nothing that I enjoyed more outside of the Alonso home runs than seeing Nimmo sprint down to first, point to the sky, thanking God as he always does, just happy to get that walk or that base knock, whatever it may be. Nimmo had himself a very strong day, 3 for 7 with 2 runs scored, because that man just gets on base at least 1 walk on average per game. That's just what he does. He's an on-base machine. He was on base at least 5 times today, I believe, as a matter of fact. And then my number 5 star, Starling Marte, did not get a hit in game 2 when the Mets won, but Marte was looking very strong in game 1 against the Phillies in that 3-2 loss. He was 2 for 6 as a whole today with a double and a run scored. I mean, Marte, when he gets on, you just know good things are going to happen, and that held true for the Mets today, as he was a run scored there in game 1, one of the 2 runs scored by the Mets in their loss, as I mentioned. But I was just coming out of this game, being at this doubleheader in person. Again, shout out all you guys for being here. If you're just chopping in, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Always appreciate it. Help us get to 300 likes by the end of the show at some point, live or on replay. Always appreciate it if we're not at 100 already. And help us also get a 16K subs if you guys enjoy this consistent Mets content. Guys, I literally got back from the game not long ago, and we were out here doing post game. As long as I am able to do it, I'm going to do it no matter the location. So I hope you guys are enjoying the coverage. But my big takeaway from today's game is, 1, the offense in game 1 was a little bit anemic. I mean, we saw the Mets have their opportunities, but it was frustrating to see them not being able to convert at least 1 run to tie it there in the 7th. It is crazy how baseball works, right? The Mets had themselves a historic night just a couple nights ago, scoring 7 runs to overcome the 7-1 deficit to beat the Phillies 8-7 to start the series, which was so amazing. I can't get over that game. I still cannot. For them to do that, and then for them to not even be able to score 1 run there in the 9th to at least tie it. Again, that's baseball, baby. You love it. You hate it. And what mattered most to me was that the Mets would bounce back in game 2. Because let's be honest here, folks. If the Mets won game 1 and they lost game 2, me talking right now wouldn't mean as much. Because naturally, baseball fans, we have this such heavy recency bias. Maybe not everyone, but I know a good portion of fans do, that you're more interested if the Mets just won a game versus just lost. So thankfully, the Mets bounced back and they did just that, winning 6-1. Powered by Pete Alonso and those 2 absolute bombs. The second home run especially, I mean, that was just, you thought the first one was a no-doubter. That second bomb that I believe was a 3-run bomb was just absolute. There was nothing you could do but just watch that baby fly. It was out of here before we know it. I mean, what this team is doing right now on all fronts, and this is without everyone clicking, because let's take a moment to actually talk about game 1 statistics, going through the lineup. Then I'll do the same thing with game 2, and then I want to break down Bassett's arsenal for a second, because unlike Scherzer, even though Scherzer had a solid day, not a great day, definitely didn't have his best stuff. He got hit after hit after hit, but still only gave up 3 over 6, which tells you how amazing of a veteran and future Hall of Famer he is. But Bassett, I want to break down in a minute, because his arsenal was just filthy today. I loved every single thing about it. But in game 1, going through the lineup shortly, Nimmo, we talked about him, but he was 2 for 3 in game 1 with a run scored. Lindor 1 for 4 with the double and the RBI. Jeff McNeil 0 for in game 1. And I don't even think McNeil had a hit in game 2. McNeil had a bad day today, but just poor luck. I mean, you saw him frustrated, yelling F-bombs down the first baseline as he's going down first, like he always does when he grounds out or whatever happens. We saw Alonso 0 for 3 as DH in game 1. Who would have thought that Alonso would actually thrive more in the first base position than DH today? But yes, that's the world that we lived in. Then Eddie Escobar did not have a good day either. He did not get himself 1 hit in the 2 games. I know I saw a lot of people griping earlier in the live stream about Escobar. And guys, it's early in the season. I can understand fair criticisms. Escobar has been slumping as of late. He's not the only Met that's been slumping, but it has been more notable with them, because while he's been an on-base king for the Mets, he has really lacked that home run power to start. And again, it's not just his fault. It's the den ball. It's the weather. There are a lot of factors. I'm aware of that. But Escobar, I would like to see him turn out a little bit. I wouldn't even mind if, say, he has himself at least 1 day off in the National Series. Just let JD play at third. I mean, JD had that bobble of a error. You know, it was a hard play there in the second game when he was starting third, but no less, I think the Mets can handle JD at third for at least 1 game and giving Escobar a day off and the Nationals series. If you're going to really give a guy a day off, I think a series against the Nationals especially is the best time to do it. So don't be surprised should it happen. But anyway, Eddie, 0 for 3 in game 1. Dom did not have a good day either, 0 for 4. Starting Marte, just talking about him, 2 for 3 with a run scored and himself a double that he had there in the first game. Luis Gourmet won 1 for 3. Louis had a solid day at the plate. McCann 0 for 2. And, of course, Marcano 0 for 1 with the pinch hit. Joely Rodriguez had another clean inning for the Mets in relief for Max Scherzer in game 1. Put some respect on my man's name. Everyone was writing off Joely early this year. You know, screaming the rooftops, that was like the worst trade in Mets history. No, Joely's actually a good reliever. Who would have thought? Look at the advanced numbers, too. Yes, you shouldn't put that much stock into a reliever's ERA, especially when he's only pitched a handful of games to start the season. But, you know, you do you, and I'll do me. Then Adam Ottavino had himself a clean inning as well. Ottavino, who did not get one out last time he pitched for the Mets in the final game against the Braves. He looked far better today, working the slider and the fastball mix well, and that did it for the Mets and their 3-2 loss. But then when we went to game 2, as we have been discussing right now, folks, that's where things stood out more. You saw Brandon Nimmo 1 for 3 with the run scored. Mark Canha 0 for 4, but with the run score at least because of a walk. Then you had Lindor 1 for 5, but with the run scored because Lindor just makes things happen. Pete Alonso, my mistake. Pardon me. Francisco Lindor only had 1 RBI today, not 2. I always have 1 error when I'm rushing. Today it was Lindor having a run scored and an RBI, not 2 RBIs today. So my apologies on that front. I would like to say that now. Pete Alonso 3 for 5 with 2 runs scored and 2 home runs. And, of course, the 5 RBIs because Pete Alonso had himself 2 absolute piss missiles today for the New York Mets. And then as we go further here, Eduardo Escobar 0 for 5. Again, he was 0 for 9 as a whole today. Just a bad day at the plate. Starting Marte 0 for 3 in game 2. McNeil 0 for 3. He was a total of 0 for 7 today. And then you had J.D. Davis, who started at third today, had that bad play on defense, but it didn't mean much. And it was a hard play to deal with as well. So I would give him, that benefit of the doubt. Either way, he was 1 for 3 with that run scored. And then Tomas Nido had a criminally underrated day at the plate. But the reason why I feel like we're not talking about Nido too much is because of the fact that Nido, after his first of 2 hits today, decided to go from first to third when he had no business doing it whatsoever after Brandon Nimmo got himself a base knock. There was no reason to try to push first to third, yet he did that, and that is exactly why he got out trying to go to third. No less so, Nido 2 for 4 today with a double, one of his best days at the plate this season. Got that average of 214, and he still has a sub 500 OPS. But again, a solid day at the plate for Nido with the Mets team that did not thrive offensively too much. They had 8 hits today. They had an expecting batting average of 260, so luck wasn't on their side with the win, the dead end ball, all that sad stuff. But again, Pete Alonso really carried them. Without Pete, the Mets do not win these games, simply put. And then the bullpen, as we broke down, Basso looked great, Chasen Shreve, Drew Smith, Seth Lugo. Need I say more? So for folks that are watching replay, that's all you really need to know about these games. Mets lost 1, they won 1, and they look to start a new series and hopefully another series victory against the Nationals starting this Tuesday. Tomorrow, folks, probably sometime in the evening, I'll be doing a complete series preview between the Mets and the Nationals, so stay tuned for that. I will have further information early tomorrow. I'll have it posted for when you guys know when it's going to be live, if not late tonight. But for people on replay, again, this is where I'll be cutting things off, so make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. I was getting 300 plus likes by the end of the show. Always appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts down below. How you feel about the Mets being 20-10 on the season. They've yet to lose a series. They have won 8 of their first 9, and the only series that they didn't win, they split against the Braves. So great stuff to see for the Mets. Another big win for them. And for people watching the live stream right now, I'm going to start answering all your questions, comments, and concerns. But again, for people on replay, this is where we'll be cutting things off.